Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday stream. I see we've already got our introduction from Trashman here, live from the land of high gas prices, dumb politicians, and FJB. It's the lady smarter than AOC, more beloved in Wyoming than Liz Cheney, and Tom Rice still can't believe that he lost. And with that, here's Dolly. Thank you, as someone in the chat said, filmed before a live studio audience. Sort of. All right, let's do an audio check. Let's make sure that everything sounds good. I believe it should here. All right, let's see who we have in the house before we get started. I saw that the mods rather, were all here early. So I saw like Captain Mac in here. I saw Q in here. We had the whole gang in early. We also have Matthew Mittens, who said that there was no notice post, so I made sure to go out and make some. We have Krangasso, Mojo Pin, Robert Graham, Larry Hutton, Mithril Silver, Nomad 0036. Oh, interesting. A weird issue with the chat where the chat got disconnected. That's weird. We have BS in California. Let's see. We have Tada. And they were here early. We have Q, like I said. Let's scroll down to get to the rest of the meat and potatoes here. We have Tisha Russo, Tristan Goodrich. We have David McCoyne, Alec 30, Glock Baldwin. Ooh. That's a funny one. The Hair Dark, Stray Cat, Michael J, MS. Let's see. Digitus Imputicus? Something like that. Matthew Malloy, Nate Marks, Fox P2, Aaron Miller, Nye Nosredne. Some of these, man. Nate Marks, I said that one already, I believe. Pyro Kitsune, Donald Bumbarger. Let's scroll down some more. Lou Flores, Brandon CFL, Me Too on Tube, Jolly Roger 822, Rick Tennant. Let's see. Frank Bettino, Matthew Mittens. Welcome to the 5 evil features. Jesse Meek is in. Hi, Jesse. We had Ed McArdle, right. Thomas Plebus, JP Morgan, Sarge USMC, Missing Link, MTB, Glocks Are for Kids, Gary Hendricks, whole bunch of folks in the house. Jennifer Winkler. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. And, oh, I'm like, why can't I hear any of the notifications? Because I had headphones still plugged in from when I was working earlier. All right. Buckeye Patriot is in. A whole bunch of people in the house. James, California. Red Rafe, Average Guy. I wonder if you are, in fact, average. Benjamin Shulnick. Let's see. I think we got a Richard, just plain Richard, is in the house. All right, I think we got a lot of the folks here. Oh boy, and Jesse says hi everyone, and Alec 30 Glock Baldwin says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Oh, that is true, isn't it? All right, so hello. Full disclaimer before we get started. Baby's little schedule, not that I put her on a schedule. She has her own schedule. She's total free-range beebs. Got a little funky today. She missed her morning nap, and so she's on a different weird wavelength today. So husband is attempting to take a nap with her right now, but in case it does not last, I don't know how much time I have. She typically does not sleep without mama. Carl Goyle? Not sure. Thank you for the donation. And Glocks Are for Kids says, your hair, I had mine done earlier today, covered a ton of gray. Yes, this was done yesterday. Thank you. And I have the shirt. It's the shirt that you sent as well. Okay, so Nine Nose Rodess says, can you believe Johnny Depp has scissors for fingers? I saw that. I saw, yeah, there was something about like Amber Heard said something about how like Johnny Depp tried to convince millions of people that he had scissors for hands. Come on, we're like, does she really believe that? I don't know. I did not keep up with that court case at all. I know that there was some defamation charges and both got found guilty of something or the other and got awarded money. I don't know. I didn't follow that pop culture debacle. But Q napped while he was driving on the freeway today, which is super, super safe. Chris Bundy says, "Where is my wedding ring?" So unfortunately, sometimes when you are nursing, I mean, this is personal information, but sometimes when you are nursing, the hormones, especially in the heat, make your fingers swell. And unfortunately, I had to take it off because my finger was swelling around it, and now I can't get it back on. So that is fun times. Fun times. Tada's dog stepped on a bee, apparently. And Matthew says, "Can I have some grace to be rude with membership benefits?" I guess it depends on what you're being rude about. Anyways, so, what should we talk about today? I had an idea about this last night, actually. Because with the baby, it's harder to keep up with the news sometimes. Sometimes the news just makes me so irritated, and there are certain kinds of stories now that I can't read without getting upset. Anything on like abortion, anything with like animal abuse. You go, I opened Daily Mail the other day, and there was like 3 stories about parents killing their children, and oh man, that makes me just shut it down right away. But it got me thinking, and so last weekend, Sunday, I believe it was, I put out a video about some new gun control that was signed in New York, and I made no claims of, it wasn't like, oh no, we're in danger of this happening. It was, oh no, look, the governor just signed these awful bills, and they suck really bad. And there were a few comments. This has happened a lot, actually, since having the baby, is I get comments about, like, oh, that thing that you're talking about happened 3 days ago, or it happened 5 days ago, or it happened last week. And I get, like, messages like that, I get comments like that, I get emails like that, and it got me to thinking. There's this really interesting juxtaposition, right? Especially right now because of the big abortion debate and everything going on in the Supreme Court. There's this whole accusation that the left doesn't care about children and doesn't care about families, and certainly we have some information and we have some things to back that up. I mean, if you Google like nuclear family, even if you put it in DuckDuckGo, right, here are some of the things that come up. These are some of the top articles that come up. Having white nuclear family promotes white supremacy, says New York professor. Report says. This was from 2017. We have Black Lives Matter's goal to disrupt the nuclear family fits a Marxist aim that goes back a century and a half. Leftist orgs decry inequality but abandon the family, the key social force that can fix it. This is a story about there's complaints a lot lately about parents not trusting the school system, but here's this school in Alaska that served children floor sealant for breakfast and told them it was milk. We have having kids makes people miserable, new study confirms. Why you should never have kids if you want to be happy. Even in Good Housekeeping, science proves that parenthood is the absolute worst. And those are just some of the top articles that come up if you Google like nuclear family or something like that. And so we have that from the left, but the right comes out and says, well, it's only the left that has no appreciation for the family or family values. And I mean, I'm sure if I had a left-leaning channel, I'd be getting similar comments, but it's interesting that even in the conservative and libertarian spheres, I get comments about how I am allowing my family to jeopardize my YouTube channel. And I am allowing my family to get in the way of being a 24/7 news channel, even though I never claimed to be a 24/7 news channel. I think part of that is the way that like CNN and NBC and all these channels ruined news, basically, by not only sensationalizing, but running this 24/7 news cycle. And Captain Max says, hey, that's racist. Yes. And, it really is, there is this war right now on the family and on children especially. And it, unfortunately, I think it goes across partisan lines. Less so in conservative fields, but there certainly is not the level of respect sometimes that people like to think or like to claim. And so it got me thinking about how children are just being used as such pawns continuously. I mean, this is nothing new, right? Politicians are famous for, oh, look, they kissed the baby. Oh, look, they're posing with children. Hitler did it, Obama did it, Joe Biden is doing it and sniffing them at the same time. Trump did it. They all do it. It's just, it's good optics, right? But I mean, we have like this abortion debate, right? And wherever you stand on the abortion debate, it's interesting to me that if a woman has a miscarriage, for example, and 20 to 25% of pregnancies do end in miscarriage. So it's actually a very common thing, right? So they say that a woman who has a miscarriage, no matter how early she has it, she's still a mother. And yet, a baby is not a baby until the left says so and decides that it's a baby. I've heard that there's bills out there that would make abortion, quote unquote, legal even after the baby is born. I have not seen that. I haven't looked into that because I think that's absolutely horrific. And it sounds too sensational to be true. But in these days, who knows? I mean, the world is a crazy, crazy place right now. Jesse Meek says, Google is broken. It should have a warning to not operate heavy equipment after Googling as you are likely impaired. This is not just Google, though. This was also on DuckDuckGo. And my point with that is just like the prevalence of this idea that children are a burden and that families are awful. And when you see articles about how awful the nuclear family is, right? Like, some of them say, well, the options are nuclear family and the extended family. And they say that the nuclear family is largely a Western idea. And in some ways, that's true. In a lot of other countries and cultures throughout the world, you have your mom and your dad and your kids, but there's also the extended family is very interwoven in that, and the whole, like, oh, it takes a village to raise a child. But when you have these organizations like BLM or these social justice warriors talking about how the nuclear family has destroyed America and is everything wrong with the world, they're not talking about the alternative of the extended family, like, grandma and grandpa also live with you guys, or you get help from your brothers and sisters or cousins, aunts and uncles. There's this glorification of a single parenthood, despite the fact that it's been shown in studies over and over and over again that children that grow up in broken homes are at higher risks for going to jail, getting less steady jobs, having mental health issues, committing crimes, whether or not they get caught, relational problems. The list goes on and on and on. And I remember when I was working with children doing community mental health, particularly in-home therapy, you had these kids. It was interesting because, and I know this is not true across the board, but like the children that were diagnosed with like oppositional defiant disorder, for example, 9 times out of 10 came from a broken home, which was interesting. A lot of the kids that I served in that capacity as a therapist, and before I was licensed as like a therapeutic mentor and like therapeutic support, all kids from broken homes. It's interesting, right? And again, the social justice view of the ideal family isn't necessarily the nuclear family with like the extended family involved. It's like, oh, the government needs to be taking care of children. And this fracturing of the nuclear family, I mean, of course, the government is going to support it because it makes people easier to control, right? The extreme of this is what we see in like 1984 and Brave New World and all these dystopian novels where the family is outlawed, non-existent, whatever. And it's just really sad because politicians also know that biologically, right, there are changes that happen in women's brains and even men's brains when they have children, right? Even men's hormones, even though they're not the ones giving birth, biologically, their hormones change as well, and it creates this connection, or it's supposed to. I'm getting distracted by the upset baby downstairs. But it is this biological mechanism that's built into us to care for our young and care for our kin. And the government and the culture is fighting against that so hard. So there is a little bit at odds, but unfortunately the left is the purveyor of all culture at this point. And I feel like the more that they put out articles like this about how having a family is racist and perpetuates white supremacy and how parents are unhappy and children are burdens. And there's even, I saw this the other day. This was wild. I'm going to see actually if I can pull it up. There was this article that came out about how we need to stop overpopulation and that soon, yes, here we go. It was in the New York Post. Check this out. This really freaked me out. If it will load. Oh, come on. Site can't be reached. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's supposed to be a really bad storm here, so there is the possibility of losing internet connection. Okay. This freaked me out. Check this out. From the New York Post. We'll have virtual babies within 50 years, AI experts predict. So even stuff like this in the name of science, because there is no substitute for actual physical children and the ways that they change your brains and your hormones and all of this, brain structures. There's been studies that have found that, mothers, even if they have miscarriages, there are cells from those babies that they lost that are still floating around their bodies and collecting in their organs and stuff. Like, there's no substitute for it. And I mean, sure, if you are someone that doesn't want children, that's absolutely fine. Like, I am not coming for you guys here. That is a personal choice. But this article specifically talked about how there's going to be Tamagotchi children within the next 50 years. And one of the reasons that the powers that be are advocating for this are population control, but also the average American child costs parents more than $230,000 by the time they reach the age of 17, according to the USDA. It's weird that they're asking the USDA about this, but a digital kid, on the other hand, could have all its needs met for less than $25 per month. That's just about $5,100 by the time they reach high school graduation, according to the UK's leading artificial intelligence expert. Other reasons to have a virtual child as opposed to an actual child: poverty, disease epidemics, climate change, overcrowding. Experts worry that the estimated 11 billion people that will populate Earth by 2100 won't get the food, healthcare, and other essential resources they need for survival, and that's a real concern for would-be parents, according to a 2020 YouGov poll that found nearly 10% of adults have already chosen to remain childless for these reasons, while another 10% cited the financial impact of having kids. And of course, we have, the climate change alarmism ramped up, the COVID, everything with COVID. Now we have monkeypox. And it's interesting that this is all happening too amid the World Economic whatever talking about this great reset, how you own nothing and you'll be happy. And so now, one of their other solutions to this is Tamagotchi children. And they say that virtual children will be commonplace by the early 2070s. And they'll be doing it by combining computer-generated imagery with machines that can learn as humans do. Virtual children that look like the real ones would be able to recognize and respond to their parents and simulate real emotional responses as kids do. And somewhere in here, it even says that virtual children would be virtually, no pun intended, indistinguishable from real biological children. This is absolutely insane to me. And then we couple this with like the attack on motherhood, and I feel like I sound like such an Alex Jones person or something about like using the word attack, this attack on motherhood. That's my best Alex Jones impression. I can't do it because I'm a female and I don't have male vocal cords, but don't quote me on that because I'm not a biologist. But I mean, all this about, how there is no sex and gender in motherhood, chest feeding as opposed to breastfeeding. This article that we looked at, I think it was a couple months ago when I first tried to come back live, or maybe it was the Joe Biden 1 year special about how in UK they're telling OBs and midwives that they can't use the actual biological terms for genitalia, and one of these suggested alternatives was front hole, and this whole thing about birth givers and like the birthing parent and chest feeding. Just recently, just today, I guess it was, one of the dudes from The Office put out a tweet saying that he learned you can't call it breastfeeding anymore, it has to be called chest feeding, and people like came for him over that, and he had to issue this public apology about how saying that was somehow transphobic and demeaning to trans people. And, parents are really being looked down on. And then when we actually have parents who come out and are trying to step up for their children and like attend school board meetings and be like, hey, like what is going on in this curriculum? They are attacked, The government sends the FBI after them. They get labeled domestic terrorists. Parents are domestic terrorists now in the United States. Absolutely insane. Gloxer for Kids says, do robot babies say, Betty, 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 howdy buck? I don't get that reference. Die Thresher, hi there. Hi, Auntie. Says, sounds like zero population. It does. I mean, this article really did disturb me. It really did disturb me. And it says this will lead to the first fully digital demographic, which, although somewhat strange on first appearance, in fact represents what could be one of mankind's most important technological breakthroughs since the advent of the Bronze Age, given its potential impact on global populations and societal change. The technologists also suggested that parental satisfaction could be even higher with virtual children with more control over how their digital spawn is designed. Their lifespan could be pre-programmed and exist in real time or allow the parents to activate them at their convenience as children on demand. Ugh. That is just gross. And it's interesting because several times in this article, they also mention the metaverse. And then we have, Mark Zuckerberg changing the Facebook company name to be Meta. And yeah, it's just, it's becoming more and more prevalent these days. And it really is quite alarming to me. Well, apparently it's a Buck Rogers reference. But yeah, I know that there was a couple more super chats that came in. Alec 30 Glock Baldwin says monkeypox has been put on hold due to scheduling conflict with Pride Month. That is not true. Check this out. The CDC just released this guidance here. CDC issues safer sex and monkeypox directives. Now, this did not surprise me at all because this is very similar to what they did for COVID. Their guidance around COVID. Remember, there was, I think it was Canada that was advocating the use of glory holes during COVID. So this is a CDC graphic right here that says, if you have monkeypox or fear that you might have monkeypox or afraid to come in contact with monkeypox, but still want to have a sex life, you can do that by trying virtual sex. Hubba hubba. You can masturbate 6 feet apart, make sure that you wash afterwards, avoid kissing, and wear clothes. So it's not quite the level of advocating glory holes, but I remember when the CDC during COVID was telling people to pick up sexting. It's just but again, this is another way of telling people to avoid intimacy. And what's sad about this is I had so many young adults during this whole COVID pandemic thing that even after they were vaccinated, boosted, masks, all of that, they were so afraid to have any intimacy with other people, whether it's physical or emotional, because you had on the one hand, you can't be around people. You have to be 6 feet apart at all times. And you can't hug people. You can't kiss them. You can't shake their hands. But also, the masking did some weird things to these people. And the really little kids, too, with, not being able to see facial expressions, but also really played up their anxieties about other people and having vulnerability with other people and emotional intimacy. And, just as soon as the rest of the world declares the COVID pandemic done and over with, except for China. A couple EU countries are keeping up their emergency powers up until 2023. They don't call it emergency powers there. I forget what they call it, but they're keeping up their certifications or whatever until 2023 to do lockdowns indefinitely. But just when that ended, now we're coming up with monkeypox, and I haven't been following the monkeypox thing, but I mean, really telling people not to interact with other people, really, in any way. So the tips come under the published heading, Social Gatherings, Safer Sex, and Monkeypox. And it's a 2-page press release that says that the death rate of monkeypox is thought to be 1%, but possibly higher in immunocompromised individuals, and therefore has a list of warnings, cautions, guidance, and associated points to be taken into consideration by anyone considering spending time with another. Some of the guidance includes masturbating at least 6 feet away from a partner, avoiding kissing, having virtual sex, and having sex with your clothes on or covering areas where rash or sores are present. I mean, I guess ideally, like, if you've got some gnarly rash, I mean, you probably don't want to be rolling around with another person, or another person doesn't want to be rolling around with you, but I mean, the fact that they're coming out with this and the CDC is advocating this, just, oh, man, par for the course at this point, right? Additionally, they are asking anyone who is infected with monkeypox or thinks they might be carrying it to make sure that they wash their fetish gear and sex toys and their sheets. And talk to your intended partner about ways that you both can lower your risk of exposure. Oh my goodness, this is just, oh man. And in Britain, they're just telling people not to have sex at all, which also is not surprising, to help stop the spread. The world is a crazy place. Jesse Meek says, anyone here remember saying, like, it takes all kinds to make the world go round and it's a free country, think what you want, and we will have to agree to disagree? That was tolerance, not condemning someone who disagrees with you. I agree. I agree with that. Let's see. I missed some chats here. Let's see. Jesse also says that DuckDuckGo up and went woke. It's now DuckDuckWent. I'm going to check if my help is needed downstairs here. Oh, poor little lady. We might have a special guest. Journey Samaritan said, you hit the nail right on the head. The ultimate goal is control. Alec 30 Glock Baldwin also says, anybody else creeped the F out by the phrase children on demand? Gross. It is gross. It's very gross. Sayari says, domestic dogs are just wild dogs that have been kept in an adolescent state for generations to make them controllable, just like young Western men. I mean, there certainly is, like, especially with hipster culture, the age of adulthood, quote unquote, has been getting older and older and older within Western cultures. And I know some people that think that college is partly to blame for that. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I don't know correlations on that, but there's definitely a big emphasis these days, too, on, well, if you have a family, then you won't be able to have fun anymore. So you have to go out and have fun and do all of these, that is... Sorry, that is really... I'm like, Anyways, what was I saying? Well, we have Glockster for Kids says Fauci is fully vaxxed with 2 boosters. He now has COVID. I did see that, and we have to be careful about the V word on the stream, as I did get some community guidelines strikes for saying the V word in previous live streams. In fact, about a month ago, I think it was, they hit me with one from last year, and I got a warning. Whew. Okay. That is the emergency text message sound, so I am going to be right back. Chat amongst yourselves. I don't have a be right back screen, so we're going to do this one. And we are back with a special guest. Let me pop this up a little bit more. All right. So we have a special guest on the stream that just really wanted mama. So sorry about that, guys. I see Lou Flores says Bewitched. The chat thing was not necessarily inspired by Bewitched, but general 50s stuff in general. So, because we have a special guest, I'm going to cover a couple more things. And, oh, big sigh. And then we'll call it after that. But I did want to cover, yes, everyone says howdy, Liberty Baby. Baby needs a Walther P22. I don't know about that. Glocks for Kids says cool colors. This is a Tula Baby, free to explore, is what it's called. So yes, we have Liberty Baby here. She was very upset. She just wanted mama. So I did want to cover this fun thing. So first of all, remember a while back we talked about the new Biden press secretary, and let me know if the audio is okay here, because I had to she doesn't like to be sitting in the carrier. She not a fan, has to be standing. So we had to move up our desk a little bit and move everything. So hopefully this is still at a good angle here. But y'all might remember when we talked about Biden getting the new press secretary and how her wife actually works for CNN. And there were questions about the ethical implications of that, and if there was going to be... Omega says Boston Union worker for the win. Yes. When she makes grumpy faces, we call her the tiny disgruntled Boston Union worker. Anyway, so there were questions of... Don't look at that light. There were questions of whether or not her partner, Suzanne Malveaux, was going to recuse herself from covering White House topics, or if Jean-Pierre was going to recuse herself from dealing with CNN, if they were going to have some other press person deal with CNN, or what the deal was with that. Well, it turns out that what actually happened is that she got a special ethics waiver to work with CNN in the briefing room despite questions over conflict of interest. So we found out, well, she took over last month. And of course, it mentions her partner's job over at CNN. And this is a little noticed White House memo revealed that Jean-Pierre asked for an ethics authorization from lawyers. And they actually have a copy of it right here. A copy of the ethics waiver. And it says, given your role as press secretary, it's important that you be able to communicate freely with all members of the press across a wide range of media outlets. CNN is a major news outlet that reaches millions of people and participates in press briefings on a daily basis. CNN has stated that Ms. Malveaux will not cover politics, Capitol Hill, or the White House while you are serving as White House press secretary. And additionally, while Ms. Malveaux receives a salary from CNN, she has no equity or ownership interests. As such, the performance of your duties will have no direct or predictable effect on the value of her financial interest. In light of these circumstances, the government's interest in allowing you to communicate with CNN about matters of public interest outweighs any concerns about the integrity of the White House's programs and operations being called into question. Moreover, without this authorization, your ability to perform your duties for the government on matters of public concern might be hampered. So accordingly, an authorization has been hereby granted. And it was posted to the White House website on May 16th, but No one really noticed it, so it's only getting reported now, which is pretty interesting. Jesse says, the MVP arrives. Nothing personal, LD, but Liberty Baby totally steals the show. Well, I mean, she steals the show everywhere we go. I'm not going to lie, and I'm okay with that. Yes, we are okay with that. She is a tired lady. So we have this new press secretary. I mean, she's not new at this point. She's been doing it for about a month now, and she has continuously been getting stumped, which it's sad. I almost feel bad for her because, like, I am sure it is a really shitty job to be running around and having to constantly spin things to make the White House look good. I mean, with everything that's going on in the U.S. right now, that must be very difficult. And with Joe Biden's gaffes all the time, I mean, there was just a video that came out of he was being surrounded by reporters and asked questions about inflation, and his like little wife is just like pushing him along and trying to get them to escape away from the reporters. It can't be an easy job right now to be the press secretary for Joe Biden. And I wonder, like, is she the personal person that spins things, or do they sit there and have these meetings? Is it like, do they have a bunch of like marketing execs that work with them or something to decide how they're going to spin things? Because this article made me laugh out loud. The White House says that Biden has sparked a historic economic boom as Dow plunges into bear market amid record inflation, high gas prices, and recession fears, claims Americans are well positioned to face these challenges thanks to the president. Now, where I live, gas is actually on the lower side compared to the rest of the country. It was still almost $100 to fill my gas tank today. And, I mean... Dos Bomber says that Tucci confounds her daily. I love that guy. He is the only one that ever asks any real questions in that briefing room, to be frank. So the White House is defending President Biden's economic record, even though now the percentage of Americans that think that he is doing a bad job with the economy is over 80% in the most recent polls. But they're like, no, everything's fine. The economy is fine. This comes as inflation has hit record highs. Gas is over $5 a gallon, and this was posted 4 days ago now, so gas is even higher at this point. And stock market has dropped. Now, part of the issue with stocks is also because the Fed raised the interest rates, and anytime that they raise the interest rates, it corresponds to a downfall or restriction in the stock market. So that's part of it, but also, it just, Americans, they know. They know. The dollar is losing value at crazy rates, and people just can't afford things anymore. And it's funny because then that's another thing. If you put into like Google or DuckDuckGo, right, the reasons for the economy sucking right now, there's a lot of articles coming out recently that says it's the economy is tanking because Americans are bitter about it, or Americans are grumpy, or we talked about this last fall, that Americans' expectations of Joe Biden and the economy are too high, and that is the real problem. Not all of this crazy stuff that's going on. So the White House also says that the American people are well positioned to face these challenges because of the economic historic gains under Joe Biden. Yet they've struggled to get inflation and high prices under control, and voters give Biden low marks for his handling of the economy. So they defended his record on the economy. This was on Monday. The White House press secretary says that Biden actually made historic economic gains, which would help the American people go through these economic challenges. She blamed inflation. Again, prices in May were 8.6% higher than a year earlier, the greatest increase since 1981, on the COVID pandemic and on Russian President Putin's war in Ukraine. Now, there is some validity to the part about the COVID pandemic. I mean, we had so many places shutting down any economic activity, production, basically shutting everything down, right? That's going to have an impact. And there were economists that warned that the impact of this would last years. And here we are 2 years in, 2.5 years in. And yeah, we have, what's the most recent shortage here? Let's see, where is it? Peanut butter is one of them. Where did I see it? Here we go. Sriracha and peanut butter are the latest items in short supply. Tampons is a new one recently. Tampons, baby formula. I actually went to the supermarket earlier this week, and there is now a ration on balloons because apparently there's a helium shortage. Go figure. Places like Costco in some areas are rationing food items again, tampons, paper goods, water. That happens at ours occasionally. And some of that is because of the shutdowns, right? But that wasn't anything that the president did in 2020. That was the separate countries around the world. That was Democratic governors that did that and shut things down. So Biden is not to blame for that part, but he did definitely contribute with his just like pumping more cash, having the Fed print more cash out of thin air that devalues the dollar because there's nothing backing it up. These COVID relief payments that he put out, and some of his policies are just absolutely insane. And, you know, okay, so we have a gas shortage. Let's shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Crap like that. I mean, come on. This is not, you know, certainly the war in Ukraine plays a part because Russia is having some major big dick energy and saying, well, okay, well, now you have to pay for everything in, you know, Russian dollars. What are they? Rubles, rupees, rupees, whatever it is. And that's kind of, that's hitting us hard too, because really the only thing that keeps the dollar afloat at this point is the fact that it's used as the petrol dollar. Now, if Russia takes that over, we are in some deep shit. And they are attempting to. So that certainly plays a factor, but it's Biden's policies that are directly impacting things right now and making things so much worse than they have to be. And of course, the Fed really backed themselves into a corner at this point. And I believe we talked about this last week, where they basically have two choices at this point. They can let everything run its course and get super awful, or they can hike up interest rates, which will burst the bubble and also make things super awful. That super awful will be a little bit more temporary than the other super awful. It is the better option of the two evils, but, you know, because they're partially the ones that got us into this mess, I suppose they probably just don't want to be crucified, and so that they're not doing it as much as they need to. But so check this out. Here's a map. This was again on Monday. Gas prices in the United States, the current national average, I'm sure it has gone up in the last 4 or 5 days, was $5. And the highest gas prices we have, like, California, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, the Northeast. The lowest, I'm glad that we're in here with some low prices. I mean, and look at this, like the markets. I mean, if you have anything in the markets, you have seen things tank. Now, things were rebounding a little bit today, but what's curious, and I guess a little worrisome, is that crypto is also tanking along with it. But that is always going to go back up because the dollar is never going to gain its value back. So, I mean, crypto and physical assets are always going to go up eventually, but it's got a lot of people panicking. A lot of people are taking their money out of stocks. They're taking their money out of crypto. There's a big thing right now where people are putting it in government-backed bonds, rather, which has a decent interest rate, but what if the government can't pay it back? What if the government suddenly decides, nope, kind of like they do at Social Security? Now, I am not one for entitlement programs, but if you've been paying into something for your whole life and have been promised this whole time that you're getting it, and then they take it away, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off about that. But they are constantly, it says that the Biden administration has constantly been blaming the high prices of gas and food and housing on Russia, even though these issues started before Russia invaded Ukraine, which was how long ago now? What are we, like a month deep, 2 months deep, something like that? But the gas, food, housing issues have been going on for quite some time. The price of gas has doubled just since Biden has taken office. And it's funny because there's fact checks about those memes going around saying that the information is being taken out of context. And what's funny is you click on those fact checks, right? And it says, well, no, it's not true that the price did not go up. It did not double since when Biden took office to today. And you know how they get away saying that? Because it didn't quite double. It was 20 cents away from doubling, and so the claim is not true. These fact checkers, man. By the way, USA Today, one of the biggest fact-checking organizations that Facebook and some of these other companies like to use, turns out that they did an internal audit of their own journalism and had to actually take down 23 articles because it turned out that they were fake and had fake sources. They are literally printing fake news, false information, and yet they are used as one of the top fact checkers and fact-checking websites. It's a little squirrely. So Jean-Pierre also says that we're not the only country dealing with what we are seeing at the moment as it relates to inflation. So the White House, in this briefing, claimed that the rest of the world is seeing inflation higher and faster than we are. Turns out that that's not true. We are ahead of China and all of the G7 countries. We are hit the worst right now out of China and the G7. The White House isn't going to let you know that. And so here we have a little paragraph about how the Fed raised interest rates by a 0.5 percentage point last month, and it was the first such increase since 2000 to a range between 0.75 and 1%. And they raised rates again, and they raised it more than they originally thought. It's still not enough. Interest rates are still at historic lows. It's not really going to do much, but check this out. Biden's average approval rating on gas prices is about 30%. On inflation, it's also about 30%. His approval rating for the economy in general right now is in the 20s. That's bad. That is really bad. And now we actually have some folks on the left like basically mutinying and saying that Biden shouldn't run. Even though he's the incumbent and the incumbent always runs, they're trying to rally up the ranks to try to find someone to take his place to run in 2024. They are fearing the red wave, and I mean, I think it's going to come. I mean, America in general is pretty disillusioned right now, and I can see why. I saw this meme recently that was a really good one, and it said, instead of saying like, oh, name one of Biden's accomplishments, it's like, oh, you're a Biden fan, name one of his complete sentences. The rest of the world thinks that we are a joke, and they're not far from the truth at this point. Meanwhile, on Saturday, for the first time ever, a gallon of regular gas cost $5 on average nationwide. According to AAA, it was the 15th straight day that the AAA reading has hit a record price in the 32nd time in the last 33 days. I mean, how else can you spin this except to claim that, Biden is doing good, herp derp, so, Americans can face this. I do, like I said, in some ways I really feel bad for this woman, because I don't know how she's doing this job, but I mean, look at some of these gas prices in some of these places. $6.99, $7.19. Check out this graph of inflation. That's bad. That is so bad. Gas prices are up more than 55% from 12 months ago. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But the White House says everything is fine. It's like that meme of the dog at the kitchen table, and he's surrounded by flames, and he's just drinking his coffee saying, hey, everything's good. Everything is fine. Jesse Meek says, the boom is the sound of the economy hitting rock bottom and breaking through into hell. Not far off. Not far off. Jesse also says, 11 days ago, diesel was $6.20 something in Barstow, California. Another trucker told me it was over $6.50 in Northern California. I believe it. I believe it. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And the thing is, this is a perfect example of basic economics, right? Gas prices go up. Well, so now we're going to see the prices of everything go up, not just because of, my computer's making weird noises here. Not just because of the cost of food that are going up because all the, crazy COVID shutdowns, and the fact that, a strange amount of like factories and farms and meat processing plants and, egg facilities, and now this big herd of cattle, everything's just like catching on fire or dying. It's a little weird. All right. Not just because of that. Of course, obviously that's going to increase prices because of supply and demand, but just the fact that, like, even something as simple as gasoline, right? How do raw materials, or say the chickens at the farm, get to the processing plant? Well, they get there usually by trucks. I see them all the time down here. So that's gasoline. Then those trucks have to deliver them to markets. Well, that's more gasoline. Even just the simple thing of gas being up this high, the prices of everything else are going to go up astronomical. I'm trying to find if there's I know there's I'm in this Crunchy Mom Facebook group. I'm starting to look for folks locally that sell their own eggs, because right now a dozen eggs in my local grocery store is up to $6 for a dozen eggs. That is nuts. I know folks that are farmers that say that the prices of feed have doubled in the last year. Man, I mean, this is just the beginning. Things are going to be getting worse. And I know that I say this a lot, and I've been saying this a lot over the last 2 years, but so far I've been right. Make sure that if you have a garden, try to do it. Like, pick up canning if you can. Whenever you go to the grocery store, buy a couple extra of whatever items. If you're the person that prefers like emergency food kits, we've got My Patriot Supply. That's a friend of this channel, and they're always linked down in the description. Even things like dog food, if you can afford now to get an extra bag of dog food, do it. because there are places now that are out of dog food. A friend of mine, she hasn't been able to get her dog's food for a month. It's out of stock at all of her local stores. It's out of stock at PetSmart, Petco, Chewy. Dog food. Dog food. It's just going to get worse. And I mean, who would have ever thought peanut butter would be a shortage? But I kind of thought that might be coming, because there was like a certain brand that we really liked when we first moved down here, and they don't even make it. They don't even exist anymore. Anything that you can do now to prepare for what's coming down the pike, because the thing is with inflation, even just on a general day-to-day basis, without even the inflation that we have right now, your dollar today is always worth more than it will be tomorrow. So you have more buying power today than you will tomorrow, than you will next week, than you will have next month, than you will have next year. Especially with the numbers going the way they are. God, it's practically hourly at this point. So if you can afford to pick up an extra couple canned goods today, or an extra bag of dog food, or like, I don't know, any of these like basic goods. I mean, who would have thought tampons? I mean, I thought tampons might be a shortage. They can also be used for an interesting prepping item. You can like pack wounds with them and all kinds of crazy stuff. But, that's probably because there's like a plastics shortage right now. There's a tinfoil shortage. And that's not even a conspiracy theory. And it's not because the conspiracy theorists make their tinfoil hats. There's like a legit tinfoil shortage right now. Like, who would have thought? So any of these basic goods, if you can afford to get a little bit of extra now when you make your next grocery trip, do it. Because shit is getting real. And I've been saying that shit's been getting real. It's so real now that it's in like 4D full Technicolor in your face right now. And it's just going to get worse. Q says that he checked a receipt and eggs were $2.50. Yeah, man. That's another thing. Your 556 and your 223. I'm going to try to make a video about this coming up. There's lots of things I want to make videos about. But so there is a particular ammo manufacturing facility that makes 223 and 556. They typically make it for military use, and any of their surplus they put on the civilian market. Biden is now not allowing them to do that anymore. So that's going to put a big hit into the 556 and 223 market. Now, I don't know how much that has recovered in the last few months, because during COVID, you could not find 556 or 223 to save your life. And I know prices came back down a little bit, not anywhere near they were, before COVID, but so I don't know how those calibers have recovered, but Biden is coming for those. And then we had like CNN coming out and putting out another video about how it explodes people, and of course we have all the gun control shenanigans going on in Congress right now. So we are just being hit from all fronts at this point, and it's kind of sad. It makes me worry sometimes for this little one, but we're doing the best we can, and you just have to hope for the future. David Dole uses 7.62. But, of course, 7.62 has been attacked as well. Hugh Galbraith says 10 for that. Yeah. Jesse says that he's selling 5.56 for $11.25 a round. Buy now while supplies last. Das Bomber bought some cases of ammo during the Obama regime. I wish I'd bought more during Trump. Now I only have around 10K rounds in each caliber. And some people would say, oh, well, that's a lot, but like not really. Not really. I mean, how many do you go through on like a standard range day where you're going out and practicing and keeping up your skills? I mean, if you go and practice with any regularity, I mean, you're going to start eating into that pretty quick. But we are successfully asleep. So that is good. I told you guys I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. But here's another fun thing. So, not only do we have the White House spinning things, Biden is claiming that a recession that we are already in is not actually inevitable and tells Americans that they shouldn't believe economists' warnings. I mean, if this guy somehow gets in again in 2024, then you know our elections have zero integrity left. Because there is no way. I'm going to be really interested to see actually what the history books say about this era someday, and what makes it and what doesn't, and if they actually are truthful about the Biden presidency. It'll be interesting in like 50 years. So this was in an interview on Thursday with AP. He said that a recession is not inevitable and instead encouraged Americans to wait and see whether repeated warnings from economists are correct. Buddy, we are here. It is happening. I was going to say I don't know where he is, but he doesn't know where he is either. We're here, sir. We are already in the recession. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There is no wait and see. We are in the see moment right now. Of course, interview came amid a week of poor economic news. We have the Consumer Price Index increased 8.6%. We have the Producer Price Index, 10.8%. A record high inflation, bear territory, Federal Reserve hiked interest rates by the highest increment since 1994. Meanwhile, the yield curve inverted, constituting one of Wall Street's key recession indicators. Business leaders, economists, half the world at this point is saying, yep, shit's bad. And Biden is still saying that the economy is perfectly fine and not in dire straits. Now, I realize that this is probably like either they don't want to admit defeat or they don't want to lose control or have the illusion of losing control. And I don't want to get in the business of giving the left political advice that could help them. But I mean, if he just came out and was like, yup, shit's bad, this is what we're going to try to do, then he would probably have a higher confidence rating because at least he'd be being honest. I think that really that's why a lot of folks liked Trump because, I mean, dude just got up there and told it like it is. I mean, he didn't try to... I mean, there were certain things that he spun, right? But he was pretty real and authentic. This crap about, well, the economists are wrong, the business leaders are wrong, your credit bills and your gas bills and your food bills are all wrong. We're perfectly fine. At least the good thing is I do have a little bit more faith in American people because they're clearly not believing it at this point if his approval rating is this low. But he says you've got serious the AP White House reporter says you've got serious economists who warn of a recession next year. What should Americans believe? And he says they shouldn't believe a warning. They should just say, let's see which is correct. And from my perspective, you talked about a recession. First of all, it's not inevitable. He replied before claiming that he reduced the budget deficit and referred to a survey taken last year to allege that Americans have more robust savings. Buddy. Really? He did not reduce the budget deficit at all. Didn't they just kick up the debt ceiling again like a couple months ago? While unemployment is at a near pre-recession low, well, I mean, that's going to happen if, the people that were going to work don't have works to go back to anymore because of all the businesses that have shut down. Yes, there are lots of places that are hiring and there is a worker shortage, but at the same time, there were so many people that were displaced because the places and businesses they worked for just closed down. I mean, how many restaurants did we lose? I remember, just a couple months into COVID, it was like 100,000 in New York alone. I mean, of course, unemployment is going to be down when, there's people that aren't looking for work anymore because of the pandemic payments they were getting, and all the other handouts that Biden's giving, or if, their business is shut down. Wages are nominally rising. Real average hourly wages have dropped 3% year over year as of May, meaning Americans are tightening their budgets or working more than last year to enjoy the same standard of living. And what's interesting is the AP reporter actually noted this in the interview with Biden, which is absolutely insane. That never happens these days anymore. He says they are less dependent on unemployment benefits and the government for aid, and yet more of them are saying they're having trouble with meeting their weekly expenses. What's that paradox? In response, Biden blamed Trump. He said it was the Trump administration's failure to act on COVID and Americans' poor mental health. That is ironic. And of course, here he repeated his argument that inflation is higher in every other major industrial country in the world, which is not true. That was something that Ducey pressed Jean-Pierre about. And not true. Not true. So Biden is saying, just stick your head in the sand. None of this is true. None of it is happening. Janine, thank you for the super chat. She says, I buy 30/30 whenever I can find it, which is seldom. Yeah. I don't know. And it's crazy. For a little brief window of time, there was a lot of big sales on ammo, and I know that PSA was having a lot of sales. They had an AR and a pistol combo, and an AK and a pistol combo. They had their new, what is it, like the dagger that is the Glock clone, I think. They were making deals with those. All of these deals now that all this gun control talk is coming up again, just gone. I mean, PSA still has their usual deals and different things that come up, but everything is tightening back up real fast. Baby is asleep, says Mr. Howell. Yes, she is. She is sleeping. So, that is all of that. So, it's 8:22. She's asleep. So, I'm gonna call it a little bit early for you guys tonight, so that I make sure that she stays asleep. This might be it. She might be out for the night. But she's going to be cranky. She's going to wake up and be cranky when I take her out of this carrier. But, so summary is, there is a war on parenthood and on children, and it is getting worse and worse by the day. Apparently we're all going to have virtual Tamagotchi kids in like 50 years. And the economy is perfectly healthy and just fine. There's nothing wrong with Biden's presidency or his handling of the economy. And anything that might be wrong is Trump and Russia's fault, is basically the summary. And it's basically what you can expect to see in the news cycle every single day, and have been seeing in the news cycle every single day ever since he took office. Oh, man, oh, man. So that is it for today, folks. Thanks everyone who tuned in and stuck around even with our little intermission there. I really have to make a Be Right Back, a BRB stream for if and when that ever happens again. Thank you for all the mods and how early you guys were. That was really excellent. Thank you everyone for the super chat. And I got some alert that there was a tip as well, but I'm not seeing it over here, so maybe I just imagined that. But thanks everyone for the super chats and all of that. All of your support helps keep the channel going, especially in these dire times. You can also check out the description for Patreon, Subscribe Star. We got channel memberships now. Gotta make some more emojis and some cool things for that. We also have a whole list of affiliates down in the description. Every time you click those links and go shopping, it helps support the channel. So if you're a fan of coffee, we got Blackout Coffee. We got all kinds of stuff down there. So again, thanks for tuning in, hanging out. You didn't bore her to sleep. She was getting there anyways. And thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your weekend. Is it Father's Day this weekend? Happy Father's Day to the dads out there. And I will see you on the next video and on the next chat. Bye, guys.